But I look back now and say, what a gift, because we got stripped of everything. We lost everything. The community, the farm, the people, the houses, the furniture, the animals, the neighborhood. We lost everything except the clothes we wore, the bodies we were in, and the life in those bodies. And what runs your body is solar energy. You're a solar energy gadget. A fraction of solar energy is stored in bonds between atoms to make molecules. You eat some of those as food in your cells, those bonds get broken, that solar energy fraction is released, and now you call it life. And when life separates from the body is finished.
Feeling dimmed by stress or in the chaotic world today? Meet Udo Erasmus. In today's podcast, he spent 40 years cracking the code to vibrate and light up your life. He's here with us to share his secrets from nutrition to inner harmony. Udo is going to teach you how to glow from within, beat burnout, and even help the planet while you're at it. Get ready to unlock your happiness, healthiest self. Welcome, Udo.
Hi, nice to be on.
We're excited to have you on today. We're going to cover a lot of ground. Let's just start behind what drives you. One of the things I loved right when I met you, you're just a happy, positive, vibrant person. And you've said your mission is to help 8 billion people tap into the light already within them. What ignites this vision, and how has it guided your work in wellness and nutrition over the last several years?
Right. So it hasn't been 40 years. It's actually been over 70. I was born during the Second World War. So it was a huge gift to be born in a war. Like I was on the firing line. I was 2 years old. And it's like, it was terrible at the time. But I look back now and say, what a gift, because we got stripped of everything. We lost everything. The community, the farm, the people, the houses, the furniture, the animals, the neighborhood. We lost everything except the clothes we wore, the bodies we were in, and the life in those bodies. So it's a very simple start, and I didn't get steamed into cultures and belief systems and all of that, because I didn't believe anything. Because they're all just like, yeah, whatever they say, it's like you can't depend on any of that, because they say, oh yeah, we'll take care of you, and then they shoot at you, right? So when I was 6 years old, it started for me. I listened to people argue, and it made me really uneasy because I was really shy. I was very, very, very inward, right? And they got so intense. And it occurred to me, man, there must be a way that people can live in harmony. And this little cocky voice of a 6-year-old who doesn't know how complicated everything is said, I'm going to find out how. And that's been my driver all my life. So it started with the war. That was the gift, and now we're drifting towards war. Just like after the First World War in Europe, they didn't practice peace between the First and Second World War. They had 21 years. So they got the Second World War. Now we're drifting again because nobody's practicing peace. But peace, there's actually peace everywhere, including in us. But we don't use that as our foundation. And when we don't have peace as a foundation, then we drift into all of the craziness that just gets crazier and crazier with time. And you can see it happening everywhere in the world these days, right? So, but that was the start for me. And then it was kind of like, I was insecure. I didn't know what I could count on. So I was very sciencey, I want to find out everything about everything, how everything works. Because when you know how the nature of things, then they become predictable and reliable. So I got into science. Then I got into biological science, because human beings and living things are unbelievably fascinating. And it's still part of this journey of how can people live together in harmony. And then I got into psychology, how thinking works, because that's part of it. And then I got into medicine because I wanted to know what health is, but we only learned about disease. So I only lasted a year in medicine. And we were told that a doctor should know what I should sound as though he knows what's going on even when he doesn't. That finished my medical career because I wasn't going to lie to people for a living. No, I'm a farm boy, right? We call that lying. And now we call it PR, right? All right. So anyway, so then I went back into biochemistry and genetics because your biochemistry and genetics pretty much are the foundation for everything. You're the trees and the birds and the people and everything going on here. And then there was something missing. I didn't, we studied biology. Biology is the study of life, but we never learned about life in biology. We learned about form and function. We didn't learn about soul in psychology. Psychology means study of soul. We learned about thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. I wanted to know what soul is. Wanted to know what life is. And so I left university, and then I got into kind of the more, if you want to study human nature, then you got to study the people who addressed issues of human nature. Who was that? Well, in the Western world, it was Socrates. And then the other one would have been Jesus, right? So what did they say? Socrates said, know thyself. It's like, what the hell does that mean? How do you know yourself? Well, you ain't going to know yourself unless you spend time with yourself, right? Whatever you learn is because you focus on it. Well, if you don't spend time being with yourself and noticing what is in yourself, in whatever way that happens, right? Then you're not going to learn much. So we mostly spend our world out there, our life out there or in our heads, but never in the space that our body occupies.
Ready to lead smarter and invest wiser? On the Executive Connect podcast, we unpack executive strategies for wealth and influence. Hit the subscribe button now. Don't just watch, act.
Yeah. I want to kind of dive into a couple things you said. I think one of the things in talking to you is how to apply human well-being no matter how old you are and where you are in your journey. So I want to dig into some of your ideas that you champion in your work, where you talk about total health as something designed by nature that has 8 key parts. What are one of those parts? Kind of 2 questions. What are the 8 pieces? And what of the 8 pieces do you think people easily overlook in their lives?
Right. You're exactly 2 sentences ahead of me. Because that's where I was going. Okay, so if you look at human nature, human nature was not invented by lawyers or governments or the medical profession or any other experts, human experts. It came from nature. Right? You're a creature of nature. If you take your clothes off, you're a naked creature in nature. And everything about you, except for your clothes, is natural from nature. And what your body is made from is either water or from air, oxygen, or from soil, through plants, through food. And your whole body is made out of food, water, and air. And what runs your body is solar energy. You're a solar energy gadget. A fraction of solar energy is stored in bonds between atoms to make molecules. You eat some of those as food. In your cells, those bonds get broken. That solar energy fraction is released, and now you call it life. And when life separates from the body is finished. So something is running it. Life is running it. And you are actually that life. What do we most miss? Life is the energy. So we miss that one because we're using it because that's how our biochemistry works, but that's also how our limbs work and our muscles work, right? So we're using that. We're not paying attention to being present to what that energy actually is and what it feels like, because that energy is actually unconditional, empowering love for the body. So we are unconditionally, empoweringly loved by life. So if you're looking for love, sit still, tune in, enjoy. Okay? But the thing we miss most is behind that flow of energy is an awareness which is completely stable, which is complete peace. And there is peace everywhere in the universe, more than hydrogen, more than any molecules, the same amount as space, because it's everywhere, inside you and outside of you, and it's completely stable. There's nothing going on. It is a foundation. It is a container. And that's what we miss the most. So everything that happens on this planet happens in perfect peace. But, and I'll take you to Ukraine for a second, in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, peace is everywhere. And the pieces, including the pieces in the warriors, around the warriors, in front, below, between, above the warriors. But the warriors are not focused on the peace that is everywhere. They're focused on an idea in the head. You're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. And the other guys, you're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. Right? So in perfect peace, they have a war. Wait, why? And then the question you have to ask, well, if that's true, that peace is everywhere as the foundation of all existence, then what are we choosing to put into that peace? Because we have the choice to put in it whatever we want. You could put peace into peace, you could put love into peace, and you could put harm into peace. And when we drift, because we don't build our life on a foundation of peace, then somebody bumps into you and you bump into them back a little harder. That's called escalation, right? And then it goes back and forth. And then over 10, 20, 30, 40, now it's been about 70 years since the last war, 1945, right? So we're all drifting in the direction of escalation and getting crazier and crazier and getting stupider and stupider and getting more and more polarized. And eventually we're heading toward serious physical destructiveness that comes from the mental negativity that comes from bumping into people and not letting it go.
Are you a high-income professional looking for smarter ways to protect your wealth? The Texas Freedom Fund gives you the opportunity to invest in energy assets leveraging proven fracking technology and prime access to global markets. With strategic oil and gas investments, you can build real wealth while benefiting from tax advantages under laws dating back to the Reagan era. Take control of your financial future. Visit texasfreedomfund.executiveconnectpodcast.com.
So remind me what are the 8 key parts?
Yeah. It's 8 parts or 10 parts. This depends on how you look at it. But number 1 is what I just talked about. Number 1 is internal awareness. When you bring your focus to the core of your being, in the core of your being is your access and is your point and access to a peace that goes from your core all the way out to infinity, not limited to your body. And every human being at every point in space is a center of that peace that is infinite. Okay, that's number 1. If you miss that, you're living without foundation. And when you live without foundation, then everything goes. Then you drift. Then you go downhill. Okay? So effort needs to be made to be present to peace. And we're not doing that. Second is the life in that space. And I call that life energy. And its nature is a flow of unconditional, empowering love runs everything. It's the master in the body, the master in and of the body. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the shine of that love into the world. And you can call that positive mind, or I call it inspired purpose. And fundamentally, when you feel cared for by life, it's not about you anymore. So, okay, I'm taken care of. If I don't feel cared for, I know where to go because I am cared for within my being. And so I just have to connect to it, focus on it, bring the focus inside. When I feel that, all of a sudden it's like, what's left to do on this planet? Well, it's not about me getting myself taken care of anymore because I am taken care of. Oh, okay, where can I help? Where can I help? What needs to be done? How can I make the biggest splash for good that's possible to make in the time that I have on this planet? Okay? And that's just because I feel cared for. If I don't feel cared for, I'm always going to be looking to do something that'll take care of me. How will that take care of me? And I won't do things that I can't see how they would take care of me, even if they need to be done, right? So really important that we deal with that inner presence that is already there, that we are not taking time to focus into. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is physical body. Everybody talks about that, food and fitness, digestion, rest, all of the physical stuff. Then number 5 is protective mind, and that's how do you make it safe? How do you make it safe for you to live your life? And it's also about reproduction and parenting and education, because that's the survival. Those are the survival issues, right? And then obviously getting food and shelter and clothing and all of that. That's number 5. Number 6 is social group. You live with 8 billion other people, and it's about connecting and communicating and contributing and working together on big projects. And then it's about membership and the threat of exclusion if you don't follow the rules of your group. So you have to navigate that. We need to be embracing the uniqueness of the members, because the uniqueness is what brings their contribution. And when you dampen down the uniqueness, then you dampen down the contribution. And so what happens if you're not nice to people and you don't encourage them, well, then they shut down and they just do the minimum and they don't do what they could be doing to make it better for everybody, right? So that's number 6. Number 7 is natural environment. That's where all our resources come from, freely given, unless somebody, says, I own this, and then tries to sell you what he got for free, right? So all our resources, so we're talking about water, air, earth, soil, plants, animals, other human beings, microbes, right? All of that. And you're basically a creature in nature. And how do you live aligned with nature, which is mostly resources, 99% resources, 1% danger, because tidal waves and earthquakes and volcanoes and rock slides and things like that. So there's gratitude for resources and respect for its power, right? So that's number 7. Number 8 is infinite awareness. And that's about coming to terms with and accepting the fact that your body is a terminal condition doing its short dance in an infinite universe, and being okay with that. It's okay that one day my body will quit. Why is that? Because something in me is indestructible and will never die. The awareness, now both the internal and the infinite awareness, they're forever. They're formless and indestructible. I call it beyond health, because it's out of the realm of even all of that. Dying and being born and getting sick and getting healthy. This is way beyond that. The energy that keeps you alive, that is life, never dies. I call that perfect health. And if you allow that to flow without interference through your system, and you bring it the building blocks it needs, which come from food, water, and air, and you don't interfere with your thinking, you don't interfere with its function by your thinking, then it is perfect health, and it will keep building, maintaining, repairing the body, and it will give you the longest life if you live it on a foundation of peace and of love. And I'm not talking about hippie stuff, although you could do it that way too. But I'm talking about, this is like as real. Peace is real, and it's a presence, and love is a presence, and it's a feeling. And if you sit with your focus inside the space your body occupies, you will experience both of those. So that's the thing to always do. How many executives spend time in their life every day where they take some time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour probably would be really good measure. An hour where they just leave all of their stuff outside, turn off all the distractions, sit with themselves, and discover what that is that they're sitting in. Because that's where the peace comes from, the wisdom comes from, the insight comes from, the confidence comes from, the wholeness comes from. There's no neuroses in that space, in that stillness, right? So
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about there's some key things that you said there. So one of which is sitting quiet without yourself. I mean, in today's world, we have pings here. Everything is, hitting us, whether it's our phone call or our TV or any of the electronics we have around us. But I feel like you were saying kind of at the beginning, a lot of people are stressed and burnt out. They're not connecting with themselves. They're really responding and reacting to what's happening in their life. I want to talk a little bit about how people can start reconnecting with their inner sense of harmony. And that is exactly what you said, by turning your phone off, connecting with yourself, and having that relationship where, oh, I'm not feeling too good today, or hey, I have this hunch, I need to call my mom, or whatever those guiding into, I'm going to call it intuition, that's telling you to do. You can't have those happen in your life if you're not plugged in to your own source and really figuring that out. So I want to talk a little bit about how can people find that inner harmony to guide them through their lives in a practical way that's healthy.
yeah. Okay, so if you're stressed and you're overwhelmed and you're anxious and you're depressed and all of those things that we call mentally unstable, mental illness, mentally not well, all of that, whenever, even right in the middle of that, the peace in the core of your being is not in any way affected by all the things you stress about, including your thoughts of stress. The peace is not affected by your stress. And the love, the life energy is not affected by any of those things. So it's good to remember when you get really crazy in your head that something in you is not crazy. So that there's two of you in a sense. One is the stress part. That's its job to deal with the environment. And where a lot of the stress comes from is that we live in a world where everything's changing and we don't want it to change. And so we'd like to control it. And we can't control it. And it's out of control. And oh my God, what am I going to do now, right? At the same time that everything that can change will change. Let it change. Because if you're in peace in the core of your being and you feel loved by life, it's okay to live in a world of change. It's that simple. But we're used to stressing about things. We're not used to tapping into the place in us that is our stability, that is our refuge, that is our safety, right? But both are always there. So it's literally a matter of which one are you going to focus on? And of course, because we focus on stress so much, and we're not very good at focusing on peace, love, and inspiration, only because we don't practice it. So what's the recommendation? Practice it, get good at it, get better at it. I've been doing a practice like this for over 50 years. When I started, I wasn't good at it. I couldn't even sit still for 5 minutes because I had so much going in my head. But gradually, and I liked the feeling. I liked the peace, and I came out of a war, so I have a standard that I can measure it by, right? I liked the feeling. For the first 6 months, every time I sat still, I started to cry. All of no particular memories or anything, but just all the tension that I had never released in my life. started leaving me. And then when it's after 6 months, all the crying was done. And so now it's always about going deeper. Work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I will be a work in progress as long as I live. And I have never seen how deep it goes because I think it's infinitely deep. And the piece just gets better and better.
Yeah, and I
Creation.
one of the things I love about our time together is, you know, one of the hottest things I hear right now is everybody's getting healthy. They want to be in better health. Psychology's become really big right now. Counseling and coaching have like everybody's a life coach now. And so I want to talk a little bit. I mean, it's a huge topic right now. Holistic wellness, health, psychology. I want to get your thoughts on how you see nutrition today, as we move through 2025.
Well, the body's always been made out of food. And in nature, for every creature that eats, the standard was fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, maybe to some extent season-based, right? And for humans, probably, if you trust the research, probably more plant than animal-based. Not necessarily only plant-based, but more plant than animal-based. Okay, because plants are the foundation of the entire food chain. So if you eat a cow is made out of grass. So we sometimes joke and say, well, cow is just a more concentrated form of vegetable, right? But it was always fresh, whole, raw, organic. Well, when you go and look in your cupboards and your fridge and you look at how much of what you have in there, and then how much of what you eat is fresh, whole, raw, and organic, there's a pretty big gap between what you're doing and what is nature's mandate. Close that gap, head in the direction. If you go from frying to cooking, from cooking to blanching, from blanching to raw, as much as you can. If it's contaminated, you have to cook it to kill the bugs, right? But head in that direction. And then instead of using artificial molecules that never existed in nature and therefore don't fit in the body and have side effects, we call them pharmaceutical drugs or industrial chemicals, minimize your use of those. Where did the plants get their protection from? Where did the animals get their protection from? Well, the plants made all kinds of really interesting molecules that we can't make. But when we eat the plants, then we get the protection they made for themselves against viruses, bacteria, and other things, right? Then we get that protection in our body from the work that the plants did for themselves. Well, so where should we focus? Well, spices, cloves are unbelievably antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, anti-cardio, anti-diabetic. Some of the stronger spices, turmeric, amla, right? There's all kinds of different spices in different places in the world that have anti-inflammatory, anti-cholesterol, anti just about everything that's bad benefits. Use them liberally in your foods. If you have inflammation, omega-3s decrease inflammation, and they do it very well. And most people don't get enough omega-3s. Like 99% of the population does not get enough omega-3s for optimum health, but they're very sensitive molecules, so they need to be undamaged. And so the omega-3s that people are getting are partially damaged. And the damaged molecules don't belong in your body, so they don't work well in your body. And those products lose their benefits when you let them be damaged or when you damage them in the frying pan. So, so I think when it comes to all of that, heading in the direction of how it was in nature, because every creature in nature eats fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, except for us. Every creature, except for us and the animals we feed. And then the animals we feed get the diseases we get from feeding ourselves the same stupid way, right? So But then, if you want to talk about aging, because there's longevity and vitality and anti-aging, you talk about anti-aging. Well, if you practice peace in your life, it literally reverses aging. How cool is that? There's good research on that. And if you feel loved and you put out love and you don't create wars in your own mind, because that's stress you create yourself and that works on you. Like if I hate you, I saw this saying the other day. When you hate someone, you're hurt more by the hate than the other person, because the other person can walk from it and you're sitting in it, right? So hate makes you age. Oh yeah, well that makes sense. Stress, even stress, right? When things happen and change and you don't want them to change, you're creating the stress for yourself by wanting things that change to be different than they are, right? You want things to be different, so you use change as an excuse to stress yourself. Well, stress ages you. And in fact, if you use enough things as an excuse to stress yourself, you'll burn yourself out. Like Sallier talked about, first you get the stress, then you get adaptation, and that already gets you aging, because your heartbeat goes up and your blood pressure goes up, and your alert, your sense of something's after me goes up, right? And if you do that long enough, then you exhaust your immune system and you burn out, right? So there has to be time to refresh yourself. It's, what does it call it? Recreation. Recreation. When we go out and have fun, we call it recreation. But the word actually means recreation. It's time we spend recreating our body. Time we spend relaxed. Time we spend in fun. Time we spend in doing, even challenges that we find interesting, and in good company, and in good feeling, and in contentment. And all of them slow down aging and or even reverse aging. So it's like we have this whole universe where all the good stuff and all the bad stuff is possible. And the question I have to ask myself, and maybe everybody should ask themselves, what am I picking out of this total? Could be totally negative and totally positive. Where am I on that continuum? What am I picking? What am I picking moment to moment?
Let's pull that back a little bit. I think we've become, a culture that is impatient with health and wellness. We want to be like you're young tomorrow. We were, how do I say this? We just don't have the patience to sustain long-term health. Everybody gets on the train in January. We're going to get a gym membership. We're going to clean up our diet. And by February, everybody's back to the fast food. They put the weight back on and then some. And so I want to talk a little bit about maybe some tips that you can share with our listeners on how they can maintain a full-blown lifestyle change. It's not just a diet or a one-time thing. I think I want to get your insights on how our listeners can boost their health and feel more in tune with themselves to live their best lives.
Yeah, I will always end up going back to, Socrates said, know thyself. What was Jesus' deal? Well, he said, kingdom of heaven is within you. And by kingdom of heaven, what's that? All the good stuff. Well, however you frame it, all the good stuff, right? It's within you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. And then the second thing was, seek first the kingdom, and then everything else will fall into place. Now, we've all heard that. There's no one in the Western culture who hasn't at least heard that. How many of you have accepted that the kingdom is within you? And how many of you have made effort? And we don't even get told how we should make that effort. How should you first seek the kingdom? It's very simple. If it's within you, you need to bring your focus inside. That means you need to disconnect from all your senses taking you out into the world. You need to take time for a space. By the way, all the masters did that. They all had a stillness practice, right? And then when you go into that, that's where you get your best payoff of all the things to do. It's not stem cells and it's not all the fancy molecules that, most of that is driven by commerce. And going home, in a way, the drive for that is heartache, thirst of the heart. That uncomfortable feeling in the chest that people get, when grandma dies or a dog runs away or somebody betrays them or they get dumped in a relationship. You feel it in your chest, uneasy, uncomfortable, painful, right? Has lots of names: lonely, longing, blue, empty, restless, yearning, striving. So lots of words for this feeling. It's triggered by lots of things in the outside world where we try to find permanence in what changes, which can't happen. And it's the call to bring the cause of it, from our disconnection that happened after birth, because we were connected in the womb. We were connected because there was no place to go or nothing to do. So we were in that place of peace, and of love, right? So we got disconnected. Heartache is the call to bring your focus back inside to that place where your connection to your indestructible nature is already waiting to be rediscovered. Always been there, will always be there. And so when I say 8 billion people, every human being has the master living within them. Wasn't like they were a couple of people who were really cool and everybody else is stupid. Everybody is born a Christ child. Everybody is born a Buddha child. Everyone has that perfection, has that peace, has that love within them all the time, whether they're aware of it or not. And what if 8 billion people all decided to spend time to reacquaint themselves with that unbelievably beautiful essence of their being? How would that change their behavior? How would that change how we live with each other, how we treat each other, how we share, how we make it work for everybody? Would that happen? Of course, because when I feel cared for, all that's left to do is help, right? But I don't say like a lot of people say, well, if you help enough people get what they want, then you'll get what you want. No. That's backwards. This is the gift you were given. Nobody can enjoy what this is except me, right? For me, and you for you. If you don't enjoy the gift of life in human form that you've been given, it's a wasted gift because nobody else can enjoy it for you. So the masters, the smart guys said, seek first that gift. I'm paraphrasing now, right? Seek first that gift. Be fully present in all of your being, because that's where the most incredible experience is always available to you. And by the way, that experience is more incredible than any other experience you're ever going to have.
Yep, I agree, Udo. I kind of in closing here, I want to get one thing that you hope listeners take away, whether it's nutrition, health and wellness, or anything that we talked about today, just quickly in closing. Is there any final thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I was taught to do a method to bring my focus in, because I didn't know. It was like in a Western world, the hell are you talking about, right? And it was like 1972. So the guy who showed me how to do my stillness practice wrote a book recently. It's called Hear Yourself. Hear Yourself, How to Find Peace in a Noisy World. Get the book, read the book, and in that book you can access him. He's on the internet. He's been doing this work for, well, let's see, I met him in 1972. At that point, he was 14. He began when he was 8. He grew up in the family of a teacher of this kind of, expert, basically a master, a teacher of this kind of practice. And so he was 14. I was 30. I learned the practice from him It's a very useful practice. And read the book and see if it resonates with you. And it's a story basically of his life and where he's been and what he's done and what he thinks about. And that'd be a good way to do it. If you can't sit still yet, read the book. Right? It's called Hear Yourself: How to Find Peace in a Noisy World.
I love it. Udo, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your light and your knowledge with our listeners. You can connect with Udo, sign up for his free newsletter, and grab his book. Until next time, stay healthy, stay inspired, keep shining from within, and please follow us on the Executive Connect podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Udo.
All right. Thank you. I hope that's helpful.